I'm gonna ask you a quick question. How many of you have a car alarm? Raise your hand, raise your hand, raise your hand. All right, I'm looking around, and now I know whose car to target. Right, we have these car alarms to prevent people from stealing our car or breaking in, stealing your sound system or whatever. There are alarms to alert people that, hey, you cannot go in, and it alerts the owner or other people around you. Hey, somebody is trying to get into an area that is off limits. You have to be invited into that area and then somebody to unlock that car for you to get in. An alarm is a type of boundary. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about boundaries and that there are actually blessings inside of boundaries. You see, boundaries are not just meant to limit, prohibit, or restrain. Boundaries can actually be a blessing because inside the boundary, when it's a healthy boundary, is freedom. And we're going to talk about this today, and we're going to specifically talk about having a boundary on our heart. A boundary on our heart. Now, what does our heart encompass? That encompasses our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts, our desires. And we're going to talk about the need to have a boundary. The big idea today is this: emotional boundaries allow me to love myself and love others better. Emotional boundaries allow me to love myself and allow me to love others better. Point number one is this: to guard your heart, to guard your heart. Proverbs 4:23 says it this way: guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Let's talk about a few of these words. In Hebrew, that word guard, it means a place of confinement. And when you do a deep dive into the study of this, what it's actually referring to a prison or a jail. I mean, when you think about a prison or a jail, you think a very fortified place, big, thick walls, or, big iron bars or whatever. And you think of guards who are around there protecting. When you think of this word guard, think of that image where we are to guard our hearts. We are to build something around our hearts, our feelings, our desires, our emotions. We are to guard that. But why do we need to guard it? We need to guard it because our heart determines the course of our life. So here's what the course means. The course is the direction that you are going in life. And so if you don't guard your heart well, you may be off course. Any of you ever seen somebody get off course before? Maybe they got a new boyfriend, girlfriend, and they went, woo! Maybe they got into some sort of new habit that wasn't great for their life, and they're off course. We have to guard our heart because it determines the course of our life. There's a saying that says, show me your friends, and I'll show you your future, right? We, as a coach, as teachers, or as parents, we say this to our kids, but this applies to adults as well. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Who are you letting into your life? Who you let in also allows the course of your life to be altered. So who you let in is actually really important. It's a good decision. It's something it's so important that we need to make boundaries that reflect the value of our life, the value of our future, because God has amazing plans for you, amazing things in your life. So we need to guard our hearts, because there are some people that we need to keep at a distance. Any of you got a relative that you like to keep at a distance? Maybe they're here today, right? You got somebody that you're trying to keep at an appropriate distance. Emotional boundaries help create guidelines for interacting with others wisely. Emotional boundaries also help us to understand how to love people appropriately. What's the best way to show that person love? How do I value them? How are they going to receive that? Point number 2 is this: everyone and everything is not helpful for me. Everyone and everything is not helpful for me. 1 Corinthians 10:23 says it this way. You say, I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. You say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. You're right. You could be allowed to do anything. In Greek, this actually means lawful or permissible. You could do anything. You have the right, you have the freedom of choice to do anything. But not everything is good for you. And unfortunately, this is where a lot of people go wrong. I can do this. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that word good, when we break it down in Greek, it actually means profitable. Not everything is profitable for you. Not everything brings you together. One of the other definitions of this is not everything is expedient. Now, when I think of expedient, I think of speed. I think of going somewhere quickly. What this is saying is not everybody or everything is going to allow you to move at the pace or speed of life that you need to. There are things or people that you are allowing in that actually could be hindering you, that could be slowing down what God has for your life. That's why it's so important to have emotional boundaries. I want you to think if you were in a race and you decided, hey, I'm really strong and I can carry a lot of weight. And so, I'm going to put my 100-pound backpack on and I'm ready to go. And you're running in that race and you're doing your thing. And in the beginning, you're taking on the weight of all the people around you. And you're just, okay, I got this, right? But you're running with an extra 100 pounds, right? So what happens after a little bit? You're like, it gets heavy. When you have so many people involved, when you have so many people that you are allowing in, you are carrying a heavy weight. And what you once were running in your life, you were running at a good pace. Now you have slowed down dramatically. And sometimes there is so much heaviness, there is so much weight of other people on you that you're like this. We need to be careful whose weight we're taking on. We need to be careful of the emotional baggage that we are allowing to come on our lives because we are not meant to take on all emotional baggage. Now, it says the word beneficial. I'm allowed to do anything, but everything is not beneficial. Beneficial, it means to edify. In other words, to build up. Not everything is going to build you up. Not everybody you're going to come into contact in life is actually going to build you up. There's going to be people in life that tear you down. There's going to be people that don't want to see you succeed. There's going to be people that are going to hurt your feelings. There's going to be people that maybe you have let in and they start to break you down. Not everything builds you up. Not everything edifies you. And again, this verse says, I'm allowed to do anything. Yes, you are allowed to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. I can do anything if I want. I could take heroin if I want. Is that beneficial for me? There are things that we know that we just shouldn't do. They're not good for us, but we do it, because I can. Here's one that happens a lot of times. I give my time to other people. I give my energy, I give my resources, I give my emotions or my thoughts, and I reach out to all these other people. But here's what happens. There are some people in your sphere of influence that suck the life out of you. Any of you got some of those? Just because you can doesn't mean that it's good for you. We have to learn to get some appropriate emotional boundaries. Make boundaries based on what is good and helpful and beneficial for you and other people. Point number 3 is this. There are different types of boundaries for different people. different types of boundaries for different people. 1 Corinthians 15:33 says it this way. Don't be fooled by those who say such things, for bad company corrupts good character. Listen, you may be a good person. You may have good character, but if you surround yourself with enough bad, it's going to corrupt. It will tear you down. It will break you down. This is why it's so important for us to be aware of who we're letting in. Now listen, I am not one of those people that like, if somebody is not a Christian, that they cannot be in your life, they cannot be a friend, then how are we ever supposed to love on people and tell them about Jesus and model who Jesus is to their life? Please, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is there are levels that we're able to go with people, and how far do we let them in? I want you to think of your emotional boundary levels as like a fence that you have on your property. Let's say this is the street or the sidewalk, and here's the fence. And on the fence, there's a gate that lets you in or out. And the people who are outside the fence, they're strangers. Those are people just kind of walking by. You probably don't know their name. You don't know anything about them. You don't know who they are, their integrity, their character. And so that's why they're so far away. But let's say there's a next layer. You go inside that gate, you've been invited in. Now you're in the grass area, maybe you're even on the front porch, or you're there. And so this is somebody you probably are acquainted with, like you probably know their name. Maybe it's still pretty surface level, like, oh yeah, this is the neighbor across the street. Yeah, I know they like the same football team, go Raiders. I know they like the same basketball team, go Lakers. And you got some sort of common bond that you have between you. And so, but it's still pretty surfacey. You know their name, but you don't know their life story. Then you have another layer. Let's say they come to the front door and you have let them inside your home. That's a different level than being outside. That's a different level than being outside the fence. I have now let them in my home. Now, this is probably somebody that we're going to have a meal with. This is somebody that I have probably had to think about. Are they safe to be around my kids? Because I have young kids. This is somebody they also have to think about. Is my dog going to chew their hand off? Right? Some of you got animals. They sense certain things, right? Like they know. Are they on the approved list or not? And they make that choice for you. Then take it a step further. This is somebody that, hey, they are sitting at your dinner table. You were doing life with them. You're talking with them. You're getting to know their story. You're sharing your feelings. You're sharing your thoughts. You're laughing. You're sharing your ups and downs. This is a different level. But let's take it an even step further. You go beyond the dinner table. How many people get in the bed with you? Right? That's a whole different level emotional boundary. Right? Why? Because it's a place of intimacy. It's also a place of vulnerability. You don't want somebody in that bed when you're snoring in the middle of the night to choke you out or something, right? So you got to trust the person who's in the bed with you. That's a very important thing. Do you trust them or not? There are different levels for different people. So some of us, what happens is we have people in the wrong level. You have let somebody into maybe into the home level when really they should still be outside. They haven't quite, made that. Maybe you let them inside and then oh man, you shared something personal and now Tehachapi Rants and Raves knows. Oh no, you're out at the street now. We're done. Right? There are levels of emotional boundaries that we need to have with people. All right. Back in 2006, I know I'm dating myself. None of my children were even born. 2006, T-Mobile came up with something called the Fave 5. The Fave 5. Now, let me explain this. Once upon a time, in the cell phone world, you had limits on how many minutes you could call somebody. In fact, you had to buy minutes to be able to talk to people. You had to buy individual data plans. You had to buy a certain amount of text messages. I know, mom and dad, if we had this now, right, you would be bankrupt because of your children. There are levels. But you would be on a phone call with somebody and be like, oh man, I'm running out of minutes. Like, we got to hurry up. Like, we got to get off. Like, and then you'd have to go to the gas station or wherever and buy more minutes. Like, ridiculous. Like, this is the level, right? So T-Mobile gets ahead of the curve, and they come out with this thing called the Fave 5. The Fave 5 for your top 5 people in your life that you want to talk to on the phone. You get to call them with unlimited minutes. And I know you're like, that sounds ridiculous, because everybody has that now, right? But back then, you really thought about, who's in my top 5? You know, I talk to mom a lot, but is mom there as much as my best friend? I mean, like, you really had to think through. There are levels that you allow people in and out of your life. Real quick, you may have a best friend level. Maybe this is 2 or 3 or 4 that you would consider, these are my closest friends in life. I will share anything and everything. They know my ups and downs. They know my moods, and they are still my friend, no matter what day it is. Then maybe you have some special friends. These are people that you do life with. You know, your kids hang out, or you go on, a couple dates or whatever. You go on vacation. You go to the house. You hang out. Like, they know you pretty well, and you allow them in to a certain extent into your life. And then you have another layer where it gets to kind of social friends. Like, these are people that we see on a regular basis. Maybe there's a commonality. Hey, your kid's on the football team or the basketball team with my kid. And you have these kind of layers with people. Then you get to casual friends. These are people that, like, when you see them, you might remember their name. And you're like, oh, yeah. I know you. And you just go like, hey, it's good to see you, because you can't remember their name, right? But these are people that they're casual friends. Maybe they're workplace friends or whatnot. Then there are people that are completely outside of this. They are outside of the circle completely. And you don't know anything about them. They're just strangers. There are different levels of life that we have, and emotional boundaries that we have with who we let in. But here is the problem. Most of us have people in the wrong levels in our life. We've allowed certain people to go all the way into the house when it's like, no, you should be out there still. And the other side of it is, some people have some people who are waiting at the fence, and they're a good person. They've been faithful. They've been trustworthy, and they're ready to come in. But you are like, nope. For some of you in the room today, you need to open the gate. Allow some people in. For others of you, it might be to push some people out. Do you have appropriate boundaries? Do you set the boundaries, or do you let other people set the boundaries for you? I'm going to go ahead and ask that the worship team would get in place. A few of the boundaries that we should have is a privacy boundary. Some of you in this place, you overshare about everything. And you know who you are. Like, you will talk to the cashier at Taco Bell or something, and you will just give them your life story. And they're like, do you want a bean burrito? Like I didn't want the life story, right? Like, so some of us just overshare. Some of us need to reserve some of that information for the people that have shown themselves to be trustworthy and friendly and all of those things. For some of us, another boundary that we need to put in place is our personal time and our space. How much time can you truly give to people around you before it starts hurting other areas of your life? Whether it's your own mental well-being, whether it's your relationships that are most important, your family, whatnot. How much time can you really give? Are you giving too much of yourself to other people? Especially those who are just draining the life out of you? And then here's a great boundary that we should have. Communicate our expectations with people. Now listen, I'm not telling you that, hey, you gotta go to Vaughn's and you gotta be like, hello, stranger, my name is Nick. And my boundary that I have for you is this. You are not allowed to talk to me until you buy me a Starbucks. That's my boundary. Like, that's ridiculous, right? You have to communicate the boundaries that you have with people. You cannot assume that they just know your boundaries, because some of you, you've got odd boundaries. Some of you have had trust issues, you've had trauma in the past, and people don't know that stuff. Not that you have to go into your life story with them, but you may need to share like, hey, this particular topic or issue, and like that's a no-go area for me in my life. I've worked really hard to get out of that, or it's something that I'm still struggling in, or it's an insecurity of mine. And so, I'm not okay to go there. For some others, you may need to be forefront with people and be like, hey, I actually am struggling with addiction in this or this or this area. And so it wouldn't be good for me to be around that. And so, I need to take a step back. But we can't just expect people to know our boundaries. But you also have to think through, what are my boundaries? What is in my best interest and the interest of others around me? The big idea, emotional boundaries allow me to love myself and love others better. Emotional boundaries allow us to establish our needs, our expectations, and our own limits. It helps us to avoid conflict and resentment with people. It helps us to prioritize our values and our beliefs and our time. It helps us to manage our stress, our anxiety, our mental health. How much can you give of yourself to others? For some of you, again, it may just be setting the appropriate boundaries in place. It may be having a conversation with somebody like, hey, I'm not ready to go there yet. For some of you, it may need that you open the gate to let somebody in or to help somebody out. I can't go there. It's not good for me. Even Jesus had boundaries. If you read throughout the Gospels, you'll see Jesus with large crowds. I want you to think of going to a big concert, right? There's large crowds, thousands upon thousands of people in this concert. And Jesus had these types of crowds, people who were coming. They just wanted to hear from him, see him. And so they would come. This is what I would call like a general admission ticket to the concert, right? They paid something to get there, to be in the room. But then Jesus, beyond this crowd level, he had the disciple level. 12 people that he had chosen, that they would eat together, they would travel together, they would do miracles together. He would teach them, he would correct them, he would show them a lot of his life. This would be the VIP level. Any of you ever gone to a concert and had a VIP ticket? Like, you're getting to see a lot of extra. Maybe you're getting to, go see the band afterwards, or maybe you're getting free merchandise. Maybe you get premium seating in the place. Jesus had another level. His inner circle. 3 people, Peter, James, and John. They got to go further with Jesus than any other humans. They saw him on levels that nobody else saw. Not everybody can travel to that level with you. Even Jesus didn't have everybody there. He let in 3 to be in that most vulnerable moments of his life. That's called the all access pass. When you get the all access pass, you're getting the best seat in the house, and probably you are not even sitting in the house. You might be standing on the side of the stage watching them, high-fiving them. You might get to go into the green room afterwards. You're having a meal with them, eating their food. You have all access to who they are. Now, why is this so important? Why did Jesus have levels? Here's the reason why, because Jesus was on a mission. His mission was to save humanity. And he couldn't necessarily take everybody on that mission with him. God has a plan and a purpose for your life. Not everybody can go on that mission with you to the extent that you need to. Now, here's what happened. Jesus went to the cross to pay the ultimate price for our sins. He died, was put in a tomb, and 3 days later, he came back to life. His mission was to purchase the all-access pass for every single one of you. That was his mission. To give every single one of you an opportunity to have a relationship with him. He has extended it out, made it available. But do you receive it? Do you take it? Do you want that access? Do you want that relationship with the Lord? What does that mean? That means that you believe that he is Jesus, he is the Son of God, that he went to the cross, that he died for your sins, that he resurrected, overcame sin and death. It also means that you are admitting that you have sinned and you have fallen and that you have failed and fallen short. But it's believing that he can save us. He can rescue us. He can redeem us. And we receive that grace. We receive that forgiveness. We receive that mercy. And then we get all access to Jesus for the rest of our lives. And not just our lives here on earth, but our eternal lives in heaven.